Today we are looking back into the history of Warcraft. A lot of druid abilities has either been changed or removed over the past years. In this video I'll go through the top 10 druid abilities which no longer exist in the game. This video was made during Legion 7.1. We might see the return of some of these abilities in one form or the other. We can only hope that some of the most iconic druid spells will one day return to our spellbooks. At number 10, Symbiosis. It is one of the druid abilities which has probably been in the game for the shortest time. It was introduced in Pandaria and then removed in Warlords of Draenor by the launch of 6.0.2. As I'm in a druid guild, this is probably my least used ability. But whenever I had the chance I always tried using it on a shaman, for feral spirits and spirit walker's grace. Number 9, Soothe. It is quite a simple spell, yet one of the oldest abilities used by druids until its removal in 7.0.3. Soothe spells any enraged ability on a mob. It mostly works on trash mobs, less so on bosses. The last time I recall ever using it fairly frequently was back in Blackwing Descent in Cataclysm, so maybe it's not such a big surprise that it was removed from the game eventually. However, most druids have secretly wished the ability would be possible to use on raging raid leaders. Number 8, Challenging Roar. A bear form AoE taunt ability. It was exceptionally handy back when aggro was harder to maintain. Did the main tank die? Well, no problem, for now. A druid with quick reactions could go bear form, pop Challenging Roar and grab whatever loose mobs there might be flying around. Surviving though was a completely different matter. In many cases, using this ability at the wrong time could lead to disaster. Challenging Roar was sadly removed in 5.0.4, and in Moonglade you can still hear sad crying bears who roar to get it back until this very day. Number 7, Insect Swarm. Do you remember the buzz when you cast Insect Swarm on your target? A highly mana efficient dot that together with Moonfire could do quite the damage when applied to several targets at once. Sadly, this swarm wasn't going to last forever and was removed in patch 5.0.4. Number 6, Nature's Swiftness. The Resto Emergency button, granting your next Healing Touch, Rebirth, Cyclone, Entangling Roots or Regrowth to be cast instantly. An incredible ability for hybrid druids in PvP in Vanilla and Burning Crusade. In 6.0.2, it was changed so only Resto druids could benefit from the ability, and later on, in 7.0.3, it was removed entirely. Number 5, Hibernate. A classic druid ability which could make Dragonkin and beasts fall asleep. Not only that, but hunters' pets, shamans in wolf form and other druids could also be forced into hibernation. It was removed in 6.0.2, so any chance of a slumber party these days is gone. Number 4, Fairy Fire. An ability first and foremost used to reduce armor of your target as well as blocking units from stealthing or turning invisible. This was a very important ability in PvP. Later on, when it could be used in all forms, it was the primary ability used to pull mobs from a ranged distance. This ability, like many others, was also removed in 7.0.3. Number 3, Nature's Grasp. When used, it added a buff which would instantly cast Entangling Roots on the first target that hits you in melee combat. This was an ability that was great for survivability, escaping to give room for a few heals or really to annoy warriors and rogues in PvP. Initially, this ability had 3 charges, so if the first got dispelled or broken, you had 2 more to go. This was nerfed down to 1 in 5.0.4 and later on was removed one expansion later in 6.0.2. Number 2, Hurricane. Another classic druid spell, and it was initially the level 40 talent in the balanced talent tree. But early on, in 1.8, it was changed into Moonkin form instead, and Hurricane was granted to all druids at level 40. It was a primary source of AoE, and even used on larger groups of adds, even for Feral before Swipe was introduced. Not only that, but it was a great looking ability when a raid of druids used them all simultaneously. In 5.0.4, its visuals were updated so it became Astral Storm during lunar eclipse. A great and iconic spell, which is hugely missed by the balanced druids today. Number 1, Mark of the Wild. It is probably the most iconic spell of all time. A spell which has gone through many changes over the years, and a spell Malfurion himself learned from Cenarius. Initially, it granted spell resistances and armor, which was incredibly important in vanilla, to reduce fire and nature damage primarily. Rank 5 and 6 and 7 required regents to cast, so you better stock up before a raid. Later on, group buffs were introduced and the resistance was replaced with a bonus stat increase, meanwhile the regents were removed. Later, to much annoyance, the buff did not stack with Blessing of the Kings or Legacy of the Emperor, making buffs in general feel less desirable and less characteristic, as the buff to increase stats was the most commonly used between classes. Eventually, it also granted versatility, but not for long as it was removed entirely in 7.0.3. So this was it for the top 10 druid abilities that were removed. What is your favorite druid ability and what ability do you miss the most? Let us know in the comments below.